darkness has always invited imagination. In the quiet hours of night, when silence feels heavy and every shadow seems to hold secrets, humanity has often turned its eyes downward instead of up. What lies beneath the soil, beyond the caves we have mapped? Deeper than the molten mantle that geologists describe with careful precision? Some say nothing but stone and fire. Others whisper that there may be entire kingdoms, civilizations untouched by the surface, thriving in secret beneath our feet. The story begins with an idea that seems absurd at first glance: the hollow Earth. In scientific terms, Earth is solid, layered like an onion: crust, mantle, outer core, inner core. These divisions are supported by seismic readings, by the mathematics of gravity, by countless experiments in geology, and yet, despite centuries of certainty, there remains a sliver of doubt, sharpened by myths too persistent to vanish. Philosophers of ancient Greece wondered whether the underworld described by poets was simply a metaphor for death, or if Homer and Hesiod drew from some older memory of a place beneath the ground. Mesopotamian texts spoke of Erkala, the shadowy land of the dead, ruled by Ereshkigal, where rivers of pitch flowed in darkness. While mainstream history interprets these tales as reflections of human fear of mortality, some have asked whether they preserve distant memories of real subterranean domains. The introduction of Hollow Earth into European thought is often credited to the late 17th century, when the astronomer Edmund Halley, the same man who tracked the comet that bears his name, proposed that Earth might be hollow, containing concentric shells and possibly even inner light. Halley's suggestion, printed in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society in 1692, was not meant as fantasy, but as an explanation for puzzling variations in compass readings. Though dismissed today, it remains one of the earliest scientific seeds for the notion of a habitable world inside our own. Historians still debate whether Halley truly believed in this model or merely used it as a convenient hypothesis. But centuries before Halley, legends from across cultures hinted at something more. Among the Hopi people of North America, oral traditions tell of the Ant people, subterranean beings who sheltered humanity during cataclysmic times of fire and flood. In Tibetan Buddhism, hidden realms known as Shangri-La or Shambhala were said to exist, accessible only through secret passages in the Himalayas. The Norse envisioned Svartalfaheim, the land of dwarves deep beneath the earth. These stories, spread across continents and centuries, raise the same question. Why does the idea of a hidden world below appear so universally? In the 20th century, explorers and fringe theorists would seize upon these tales, but the roots extend further. Roman writers noted strange accounts of entire underground cities in Cappadocia, carved into the rock and connected by tunnels large enough for thousands of people to live unseen. These were not mythical, but real places, still standing today beneath the Turkish plateau. Though built by humans on the surface, their scale feeds the imagination. If ancient people could carve sprawling labyrinths for refuge, why not imagine that others, older, stranger, perhaps more advanced, had done the same in regions beyond our reach? Amid these reflections, one strange off-topic note deserves mention. In 1818, an eccentric American named John Cleves Symmes Jr. began to campaign for a government expedition to locate massive holes at the poles, gateways, he claimed, to the hollow interior of Earth. His circulars, distributed widely, proposed colonizing these lands and opening trade with the advanced civilizations dwelling inside. Though ridiculed, Symmes' obsession drew public attention and inspired literature, including novels that blurred fact and fantasy. His son would later try to carry forward the dream, though no such expedition was ever granted official sanction. Modern geology dismisses such claims, yet the persistence of Symmes' theory reveals something curious. Even in an age of reason, the hunger for hidden worlds endured. And while physicists insist that a hollow Earth is impossible under the laws of pressure and gravity, others point out that vast underground caverns do exist, some stretching for miles, some still undiscovered. In 2014, scientists announced the discovery of what appears to be a vast reservoir of water, locked within minerals deep in Earth's mantle, perhaps 3 times the volume of all the oceans combined. While this does not indicate a hollow realm, it shows how little we truly know of the interior beneath us. So the stage is set, myths, maps, and science colliding in uneasy debate. A world within our world, dismissed by scholars, yet whispered of in temples, caves, and ancient manuscripts. The question hangs suspended between poetry and possibility. Could there be life, not microbial, not abstract, but intelligent, organized, enduring, beneath our very feet? Before this journey descends further, there is a pause, an invitation, a reminder. If the story has already stirred your imagination, if the thought of secret kingdoms hidden in the dark makes you wonder what might be true, then, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what is being created here. And if you would, share your location and your local time in the comments so that others drifting into this mystery can see where in the world you're listening from. With that, the descent begins. Past the known maps of explorers, past the shallow crust we walk upon, into the domain of shadows and unanswered questions. The hollow earth may be no more than myth, or it may conceal something greater than we dare to imagine. The voices of history echo faintly, and the ground beneath us feels less solid than it once did. Beneath the surface of history there are patterns of storytelling that cling stubbornly to the edges of recorded memory. Legends of subterranean domains appear not only in one culture, but in many, separated by oceans, mountains, and millennia. They are not uniform, yet their persistence creates a haunting thread. It is as if human imagination has always carried within it the suspicion that the earth hides more than it reveals. The Greeks spoke of Hades, a gloomy underworld where shades of the dead wandered endlessly. The Orphic mysteries describe journeys downward through secret gates, where initiates were guided by cryptic tablets inscribed with instructions for navigating the realms of death. Scholars argue that these were symbolic rituals, metaphors for spiritual transformation, yet the imagery is striking. Pathways underground, guarded portals, rivers, and palaces belonging to unseen kings. Historians still debate whether such myths were entirely allegorical, or whether they were shaped by actual encounters with deep caves and caverns that evoked the feeling of other worlds. Far to the east, in Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Enkidu's descent into the House of Dust, a place beneath the soil where the dead eat clay and drink stale water. Again, this may simply have been a poetic description of mortality, but it sits alongside the literal geography of Mesopotamia, a land riddled with underground aquifers, tombs, and labyrinthine temple foundations. In China, Taoist lore spoke of immortal grottos, hidden caverns where sages found passage to realms beyond ordinary time. These sacred caves were said to connect with deeper dimensions of the earth, places of eternal light despite being hidden from the sun. Meanwhile, in the high plateaus of Tibet and Mongolia, Buddhist texts whisper of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom of enlightened beings, concealed within mountains or beneath the ground. The Kalachakra Tantra describes it as a place of radiant palaces, invisible to the unworthy, accessible only to those pure of heart. To many this is a metaphor for spiritual attainment, yet for others it has fed the notion of literal passageways leading downward into concealed realms. Pilgrims have for centuries searched for these entrances, wandering mountain passes in hopes of stumbling upon a gate to the hidden city. Stranger still are the accounts from the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Among the Hopi, the story of the ant people stands out. In their oral tradition, humanity was saved not once but twice by these underground dwellers. When fire swept across the land and when floods drowned the surface, the ant people opened their tunnels and sheltered humankind. These beings were not gods but helpers, described as tall, thin figures with great heads and eyes that glowed in the darkness. To modern ears, it sounds like myth, yet to the Hopi it is history, told with reverence across generations. Across the world in Europe there are curious tales from medieval chronicles. In the 12th century, 2 children were said to have emerged in Woolpit, England. Their skin was green, their language unknown, their origin a mystery. According to reports, they claimed to come from a land beneath the ground, a place with no sun where everything carried a greenish glow. Some dismissed this story as allegory or distortion, others as a folk tale born from famine. Yet its presence in recorded chronicles has ensured its survival in discussions of subterranean civilizations. And then there are the caverns themselves, silent yet compelling. In 1994, explorers discovered the Cueva de las Cristales in Mexico, a cavern filled with crystals so vast they dwarf the human body. Some measured more than 10 meters long, shining like pillars of another world. It is only one among thousands of caves yet to be mapped. Each discovery feeds the question, if nature can create chambers so vast and so alien in beauty, why should imagination not populate them with hidden societies? One strange but illustrative tangent comes from the 17th century, when Jesuit missionaries in South America recorded tales of cities beneath the Andes, lit by perpetual fire. While these were dismissed as local myths, travellers in the following centuries claimed to find entrances into vast cavern systems near Cusco and Quito. Some insisted that golden treasures from the Inca Empire had been hidden in these labyrinths, never recovered. The story, part history and part treasure hunter's fantasy, has fueled expeditions even into the modern age. Science, of course, provides its own grounding. Geologists explain that the Earth is alive with movement. Beneath us lie tectonic plates, magma flows, seismic stresses that shift continents over millions of years. Earthquakes, sinkholes, and volcanic eruptions are dramatic reminders that the ground beneath us is dynamic and unstable. Caverns form when water eats away at limestone, lava tubes stretch for miles under volcanic terrain, and subterranean rivers carve unknown paths. While this does not equate to vast hollow chambers, it creates countless opportunities for hidden passageways that remain unexplored. Here lies the tension. On one hand, science insists that a hollow Earth, as once imagined, cannot exist. On the other, myth and experience across cultures provide uncanny parallels that resist easy dismissal. Could it be that the legends of underground civilizations were not about a hollow planet, but about real, localized societies, tribes, hermits, or forgotten cultures who survived in deep caves? Could it be that their memory grew into myth, and myth into universal archetype? There is one final note that deepens the mystery. In 2013, geophysicists identified seismic patterns suggesting there may be vast reservoirs of water hidden hundreds of kilometers beneath Earth's surface, stored within ringwoodite crystals. If oceans of liquid can exist where no one imagined, perhaps entire ecosystems, microbial, perhaps even more complex, might survive in places unreachable to us. Hypotheses remain cautious, but the door is open, if only slightly. Thus the legends endure. Some speak of them as allegories, others as distorted memories, and still others as evidence of real civilizations that vanished into the depths. The debate remains unresolved, stretching across disciplines and centuries. Scholars continue to ask whether these tales are coincidence or a collective memory of a forgotten truth, and as long as the caves remain dark and unexplored, the question cannot be fully answered. There is an old saying among cartographers of the Renaissance, "Here be dragons." The phrase was less about monsters than about uncertainty, a warning that maps could not be trusted beyond the boundaries of known exploration. And yet, sometimes the maps themselves carried more than warnings. They bore images and details that seemed to point toward realms unseen, corridors to worlds imagined but never confirmed, It is within these strange artifacts of geography that the idea of hidden civilizations beneath the earth began to take on a new shape. The Renaissance was an age of rediscovery, when scholars of Europe sought to reconnect with the ancient knowledge of Greece, Rome, and beyond. Maps were drawn and redrawn, guided as much by myth as by observation. Among the strangest were those that suggested vast openings at the poles, gateways to lands beneath. One map, attributed to the Flemish cartographer Gerhard Mercator in the 16th century, depicted the North Pole not as ice but as an opening, a whirlpool drawing in the oceans, with 4 great rivers converging toward a central landmass. At the heart of this geography lay a black mountain, Rupes Nigra, said to rise like a pillar at the world's centre. Scholars have long debated Mercator's source. Some say he was influenced by Norse legends of Hyperborea, a land beyond the Arctic winds. Others believe he drew from lost manuscripts of medieval travellers, perhaps coloured by the apocryphal tales of explorers who claimed to have ventured farther north than ships could survive. Whatever its origin, the map created ripples of speculation. If there was an opening at the top of the world, could it lead downward into an unseen domain? In the centuries that followed, explorers returned with curious testimonies. In the 1820s, a British naval officer named John Cleves Symmes Jr. began circulating handbills across America, declaring the earth hollow and habitable within, with entrances at both poles. He insisted that expeditions should be launched to locate these gateways. Symmes was not a cartographer but a soldier and dreamer, and his proposal was dismissed by officials. Yet the idea caught the public imagination, and his followers even tried to petition Congress to fund such a journey. Historians still debate whether Symmes was deluded or whether he tapped into a cultural hunger for unseen frontiers. While Symmes campaigned, literature embraced the notion. Jules Verne's Journey to the Centre of the Earth appeared in 1864, presenting a fantastical vision of subterranean oceans and prehistoric life hidden below the crust. Though fiction, it borrowed heavily from both scientific theories of the time and folklore that whispered of caverns and hidden realms. Verne's novel gave the Hollow Earth myth a literary home, cementing it in the Western imagination. But perhaps more intriguing are the reports from real expeditions that appear to align with such tales. In 1595, the Flemish explorer Willem Barents set sail in search of the Northeast Passage. He and his crew became trapped in Arctic ice, recording strange phenomena, shimmering lights, distorted horizons, and mirages that seemed to show land where no land existed. Such illusions are today explained as atmospheric refraction, yet they fueled speculation about hidden lands beyond the reach of ordinary navigation. Could those mirages have hinted at openings to inner realms, or were they simply tricks of light on ice and water? To add a peculiar detail, a 17th century map known as the Nova Orbis Tabula depicted not only continents, but also underground regions, illustrated with passages leading downward. The cartographer was less concerned with accuracy than with imagination, yet the presence of such designs shows how natural it seemed to Renaissance minds that the earth might contain entire worlds within. One strange off-topic account comes from 1665, when residents of Leipzig reported seeing 2 armies battling in the sky, complete with smoke, fire, and cannon blasts. While modern historians attribute this to atmospheric phenomena or mass hallucination, it reveals how people of the time interpreted unexplainable visions as evidence of hidden realms interacting with their own. If the heavens could conceal unseen battles, why not the ground below? Modern science again offers grounding. Geologists explain that polar regions contain shifting ice sheets, under which lie no great caverns but vast shelves of rock and frozen ocean. Satellite imagery has mapped much of this terrain, revealing no great openings. Yet the poles remain difficult places to explore fully, and mysteries endure. In 2018, scientists discovered a massive void beneath Antarctic ice, nearly the size of Manhattan, forming as the ice melted and shifted. While this does not suggest a hollow Earth, It shows how even today, hidden spaces of extraordinary size can remain undiscovered until technology reveals them. Speculation continues. If maps of the past hinted at openings, were they symbolic, metaphoric, or were they drawn from accounts of explorers who saw something real but misinterpreted? Some argue that Mercator's depiction of a polar opening was allegorical, representing not a physical gateway but the concept of a spiritual centre of the world. Others wonder whether he had access to records from earlier civilizations, Phoenicians, Vikings, or even more ancient seafarers, who passed down distorted tales of what lay at the ends of the earth. The debate stretches across centuries, unresolved. Each map is at once a window and a riddle. They remind us that human imagination thrives where knowledge ends. In the shaded corners of parchment, at the edges of continents, artists filled the unknown with serpents, whirlpools, or gates to other worlds. And those images, once drawn, became seeds that would grow into the modern myths of hidden civilizations beneath the earth. High in the mountains of Tibet, monks have long whispered of a hidden realm called Shambhala. Unlike the shadowy underworlds of Greece or Mesopotamia, Shambhala was described not as a place of death, but as a kingdom of light. Its golden palaces, encircled by snow-capped peaks, were said to house beings of extraordinary wisdom, guardians of secrets that could transform the fate of humankind. Some accounts placed it deep in the Himalayas, others beneath the earth itself, accessible only through secret passages known to initiates. The story of Shambhala first appeared in Buddhist texts of the Kalachakra Tantra around the 10th century. It was said to be the source of a sacred teaching, a place where rulers and sages preserved wisdom for an age when the world above would descend into chaos. Descriptions vary. Some portray it as a physical city hidden by geography and enchantment, others as a spiritual state achievable only through enlightenment. Yet across these accounts runs a common thread. Shambhala is concealed, unreachable by ordinary means. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Western explorers and mystics began to seize upon these traditions. Russian traveller Nicholas Roerich, journeying through Central Asia in the 1920s, wrote of lamas who pointed to distant valleys and told him, "There lies Shambhala." He described a vision of a radiant city hidden behind the clouds, guarded by unseen forces. Roerich's accounts inspired both artists and occultists, who blended the Buddhist myth with the growing fascination in the West with subterranean civilizations. Theosophists, particularly Helena Blavatsky, drew connections between Shambhala and the earlier European myths of Agartha, a hidden world beneath the crust of the earth. In her writings, Blavatsky suggested that ancient masters, the so-called Mahatmas, dwelt in these hidden cities, guiding human evolution in secret. She wove together strands from Buddhist scripture, Hindu mythology, and Western esotericism into a tapestry that suggested Shambhala was not only real, but inhabited by advanced beings. Historical context deepens the intrigue. During the early 20th century, several expeditions funded by European powers, including Germany, made journeys into Tibet, ostensibly for scientific and ethnographic purposes. Rumours swirled that these expeditions were also attempts to locate Shambhala or Agartha. While official reports speak of geographical surveys and cultural exchanges, speculative literature insists that explorers sought gateways into subterranean kingdoms. Historians still debate whether these missions carried esoteric motivations, or whether later mythmakers simply projected their own desires onto them. One curious but seemingly unrelated event occurred in 1927, when Roerich claimed that while travelling in Mongolia, he and his companions saw a mysterious shiny object moving across the sky before disappearing behind the mountains. Some interpret this as an early UFO sighting, others as a meteor. Yet Roerich himself connected it to Shambhala, suggesting it was a sign from the hidden realm. This blending of celestial mystery with subterranean legend underscores the way these myths attract connections across disparate phenomena. Modern science approaches Shambhala cautiously. To geographers, the Himalayas are among the youngest and most unstable mountain ranges on Earth, thrust upward by the collision of tectonic plates. Beneath them lies a complex geology of caves, rifts, and underground rivers. Vast regions remain unexplored. In 2008, a newly discovered cave system in China stretched more than 100 kilometers, complete with its own weather system. Such discoveries demonstrate that immense hidden spaces exist beneath mountains, though they are carved by geology, not guardians of sacred wisdom. Yet the symbolism of Shambhala persists. For some, it represents the hope of a refuge from decline. For others, it is an allegory for inner transformation, a reminder that the journey inward can lead to hidden realms of consciousness. And for a small but enduring circle, it remains a literal kingdom waiting to be found. Speculation continues. Could Shambhala and Agartha be remnants of a memory of real societies that retreated underground in ancient times, preserving knowledge that later became myth? Could the idea of a radiant underground kingdom reflect cultural memories of thriving cave-based settlements like the underground cities of Cappadocia, magnified through centuries of storytelling? The debate is not resolved. Historians, anthropologists, and mystics continue to interpret Shambhala in different ways. To scholars, it is a mythic construct. To spiritual seekers, it is a living ideal. And to those fascinated by hidden civilizations, it is one more hint that beneath the mountains and the soil there may be worlds still undiscovered. As legends of Shambhala spread through the East, stories of a different subterranean world began to take shape in Europe. Agartha. Unlike the radiant kingdom described by Tibetan texts, Agartha was imagined as a vast structured empire beneath the surface of Earth, ruled by a powerful king and connected to the surface through hidden tunnels that spanned continents. Its name surfaced in the 19th century, woven into the works of occultists, mystics, and writers who sought to explain the persistent echoes of hidden worlds. The earliest well-known description came from a French writer named Joseph-Alexandre Saint-Yves d'Alvedre in 1886. In his book Mission de l'Inde en Europe, Saint-Yves claimed to have received visions of Agartha from an Eastern master. He described it as an immense underground realm governed by wise rulers, holding libraries of lost knowledge and possessing technologies far beyond anything known to the surface. According to his vision, Agartha had once been accessible to humanity, but retreated underground after cataclysms reshaped the world. Saint-Yves' work blended esotericism with geopolitics, suggesting that surface nations could achieve peace if they followed the model of Agartha's enlightened rule. His writing influenced the burgeoning theosophical movement, which eagerly absorbed and reinterpreted the idea. To the followers of Helena Blavatsky and later occult thinkers, Agartha was not merely a fantasy, but a hidden counterpart to the visible world, a kingdom in waiting that could one day re-emerge. Historians still debate whether Saint-Yves was drawing on genuine Eastern traditions or inventing a myth to serve his philosophical purposes. From there, Agartha seeped into folklore, merging with older legends of subterranean people. In Germany, tales of Erdleute, earth-dwellers, were already part of medieval storytelling, describing small, elusive beings who lived in caverns and mines. In Scandinavia, dwarves were believed to inhabit underground forges where they crafted weapons of power. These folk traditions were not identical to Agartha, but became entangled with the notion that vast and organized societies might exist below. In the early 20th century, European explorers carried the legend farther. Ferdynand Ossendowski, a Polish writer, published Beasts, Men and Gods in 1922, recounting his travels in Mongolia. He claimed to have heard stories from lamas and nomads about a subterranean kingdom called Agartha, whose ruler, the king of the world, could influence events on the surface. Ossendowski described how earthquakes, storms, and wars were believed to be linked to decisions made in this hidden kingdom. Though critics accused him of exaggeration or fabrication, the book captured the imagination of readers worldwide, solidifying Agartha in popular consciousness. One strange off-topic parallel emerged at the same time in Europe. In 1924, newspapers across Germany reported sightings of mysterious lights in the sky, interpreted by some as signs of secret technologies. While most historians attribute them to early experimental aircraft or natural phenomena, occultists seized upon the reports, linking them to the hidden power of Agartha. They suggested that advanced subterranean civilizations might deploy aerial craft, blending myths of underground worlds with the newly emerging fascination for flight. Meanwhile, science again provided its own lens. Anthropologists pointed out that stories of underground realms often arose in places where natural cave systems played vital roles in survival. In Cappadocia, entire cities had been carved underground, complete with ventilation shafts and stables. In Malta, vast subterranean temples like the Halsaflieni Hypogeum hinted at ritual spaces that connected worshippers to the depths of the earth. These tangible structures may have seeded myths of larger hidden worlds, but the Agartha described by mystics was something far greater. A global network, a hidden empire spanning beneath continents. Some believed it to be inhabited by survivors of Atlantis, who retreated underground after their island fell. Others suggested it was home to beings not entirely human, descendants of an older species who chose the depths over the surface. Still others speculated that it represented a higher plane of existence, accessible through both physical passages and spiritual awakening. Speculation has not faded. Even into the late 20th century, conspiracy theories persisted that tunnels connected places as far apart as Tibet, Egypt, and the Andes. Some claimed governments were aware of these pathways and concealed their existence. Others argued that great natural cataclysms in prehistory forced civilizations underground, where they evolved apart from us. The evidence is circumstantial, drawn from legends, anomalous maps, and the presence of vast caves, but it sustains the possibility in the minds of believers. The question remains unresolved. Was Agartha a vision born of mystics and writers, weaving fragments of folklore into an imagined kingdom? Or could it preserve some distorted memory of real events, survivors of lost cities, cultures forced underground, their story retold until it became myth? Historians still debate whether Agartha is an invention of the 19th century or a reinterpretation of much older traditions. Whatever its origin, the name has endured. Agartha has become one of the central symbols of the Hollow Earth idea, a place where myth and speculation meet, where hope for hidden wisdom beneath the soil remains alive. Whether allegory, memory, or reality, it continues to haunt the imagination, reminding us that the ground beneath us may hold secrets deeper than we dare to guess. By the early decades of the 20th century, the myth of subterranean civilizations was no longer confined to mystics, mapmakers, or storytellers. It began to drift into the dangerous realm of politics and ideology. Among the strangest chapters in this history are the theories and expeditions associated with the Nazi regime, which sought to fuse mythology with scientific ambition. For them, hidden worlds beneath the earth were not just tales for dreamers. They were potential sources of ancient power, knowledge, and legitimacy. The roots of this fascination can be traced to the early years of the German nationalist occult movement. Groups such as the Thule Society drew heavily upon myths of lost civilizations like Atlantis and Agartha, weaving them into their vision of a noble ancient race. To them, the possibility of a subterranean kingdom where advanced beings or forgotten Aryan ancestors had survived was intoxicating. It promised both a golden past and a hidden ally in their political future. Historians still debate the extent to which these myths influenced official Nazi policy, but the threads are difficult to ignore. In the 1930s, German expeditions to Tibet took place under the auspices of the SS, led by Heinrich Himmler's Ahnenerbe Institute. The stated purpose was to study the culture, geography, and natural history of the region. But rumours flourished that the expeditions were also a quest for Shambhala, or Agartha, the hidden kingdom said to lie beneath the Himalayas. While scholars today point to anthropological motives and the Nazis' obsession with racial origins, occult circles continue to insist that they were seeking literal gateways to subterranean realms. One curious but often overlooked event occurred in 1938, when an SS team reportedly conducted experiments in a castle in Austria, attempting to test the hollow Earth theory by aiming radar beams upward, in the belief that they would bounce off the inner surface of a hollow sphere. Though modern physics would dismiss such efforts as nonsense, the account reflects how seriously some factions treated the possibility of an inner world. Whether the experiment happened as described remains disputed. Some historians argue it is a post-war fabrication, while others see hints of genuine though misguided research. The Second World War itself provided fertile ground for speculation. As Allied forces advanced and documents were captured, rumours began to spread that Nazi leaders had hidden secret bases in Antarctica. Some stories claim that submarines had discovered vast caverns beneath the ice, where advanced technology was being developed with the help of subterranean allies. These tales, though lacking firm evidence, fed into the larger mythos of a hollow Earth. Antarctica, remote and poorly mapped, became the perfect canvas for such imaginations. Science offers a colder perspective. Antarctica does indeed contain massive subglacial lakes, such as Lake Vostok hidden beneath miles of ice. These lakes have been isolated for millions of years, sparking speculation about unique ecosystems. While they do not connect to hidden empires, their very existence demonstrates how much can remain unseen beneath the surface. The discovery of microbes in Lake Whillans in 2013 confirmed that life can survive in environments long thought inhospitable, hinting at possibilities we have only begun to consider. One off-topic but illuminating event unfolded in 1945 just after the war's end. Reports circulated of strange ghost rockets seen over Scandinavia, streaking through the skies in patterns no one could explain, while historians generally attribute them to early Soviet missile tests or meteors. Some fringe theorists linked them to hidden bases in subterranean or polar regions. The combination of post-war secrecy and unexplained phenomena fed the idea that powerful forces beneath the Earth continued to influence the surface world. The hypothesis of Nazi expeditions to locate inner Earth civilizations remains controversial. Some dismiss it as post-war myth-making, a way of turning real but mundane explorations into sensational stories. Others suggest that while the Nazis did not discover hidden kingdoms, their documented interest in esotericism makes the legends plausible. Historians still debate whether these stories are based on kernels of truth or fabrications spun for ideological or entertainment purposes. Yet the resonance of this period endures. For many who contemplate hollow Earth theories, the connection to Nazi Germany provides both mystery and unease. It illustrates how easily myths can be co-opted by ideology, transformed from speculative wonder into tools of political ambition. At the same time, it highlights the persistent allure of subterranean civilizations, even to those who wielded immense worldly power. In the decades that followed, these stories grew into modern legend. Antarctica remained a focal point for speculation, the perfect blank space on the map where one could imagine hidden caverns, lost cities, and secret bases. The association of the Nazis with hollow Earth myths gave the legend a darker edge, binding it to a time when the search for hidden realms was not only mystical, but militarized. Thus, the idea of a secret civilization beneath the Earth was no longer only the domain of ancient myth or philosophical speculation. It had stepped into the modern world, entangled with ideology, science, and secrecy. The descent into mystery deepened, and with it, the lingering suspicion that beneath the ice, beneath the soil, something remained concealed. In the aftermath of the Second World War, rumours of hidden worlds beneath the poles did not fade. Instead, they grew louder, woven into the tales of one man whose career straddled both exploration and legend. Admiral Richard E. Byrd of the United States Navy. Byrd was a decorated aviator and polar explorer, famous for his daring flights over the Arctic and Antarctic. Yet, it is his 1947 expedition that has become one of the central pillars of Hollow Earth speculation, largely because of what he supposedly saw, or at least what others later claimed he saw. The story begins with Operation High Jump, an immense US Navy mission to Antarctica launched in 1946-47. Officially, it was a training operation designed to test men and equipment in polar conditions. Over 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft were deployed, making it the largest Antarctic expedition of its time. The sheer scale of the mission alone gave rise to speculation. Why such a massive force for training exercises? Some believed there were hidden motives, ranging from the search for secret Nazi bases to the investigation of polar anomalies. According to mainstream records, Operation High Jump ended prematurely after just a few months, with several aircraft lost and lives claimed by harsh conditions. Yet rumours quickly filled the gaps. Fringe writers suggested that the expedition had encountered something extraordinary. Flying craft emerging from beneath the ice, or openings leading into vast subterranean caverns. These claims gained momentum in later decades, when accounts circulated of a secret journal allegedly written by Byrd himself. The so-called Byrd Diary, which appeared publicly in the 1990s, describes a fantastical journey. In it, Byrd writes of flying beyond the pole and encountering lush valleys where mammoths roamed, guided eventually to a radiant city inhabited by an advanced race. These beings, the diary claims, warned humanity against nuclear war and urged peace. Scholars, however, point out that the diary is almost certainly a forgery, inconsistent with Byrd's actual writing style and lacking any provenance. Historians still debate whether the diary was crafted as deliberate fiction or sincere but misguided myth-making. Yet the idea persists, because even without the diary, Byrd himself gave fuel to speculation. In an interview with a Chilean newspaper in 1947, he was quoted as saying that Antarctica was the land of everlasting mystery, and that it held resources that could supply the world. Later, in 1956, he was reported as saying that this is the most important expedition in the history of the world. Such ambiguous remarks, when lifted from their context, became proof for those convinced that Byrd had glimpsed more than ice and snow. One strange and seemingly unrelated event occurred in 1947, the very year of Operation High Jump. In Roswell, New Mexico, the crash of a supposed flying object sparked the modern era of UFO speculation. Though the events are distinct, believers in subterranean civilizations often link them, suggesting that both represented encounters with advanced beings, some from the sky, others from beneath the earth. The timing, in their view, was no coincidence. Science offers more prosaic explanations. The polar regions are prone to optical illusions, including mirages known as Fata Morgana, which can create the appearance of mountains, forests, or even entire cities where none exist. Pilots in the Arctic have reported such visions for centuries, often describing them in terms that sound fantastical. It is possible that Byrd himself saw such illusions, later magnified by rumour into visions of inner Earth kingdoms. Still, the allure of the Byrd story remains strong. Could an experienced explorer, trained in navigation and observation, have truly mistaken an optical illusion for a hidden world? Or is it possible that he witnessed something unexplained, something that official records have since concealed? The question lingers in the gap between documented history and whispered legend. In the years after his polar flights, Byrd continued to serve in the Navy and lead expeditions. He died in 1957, leaving behind a legacy of exploration and a shadow of mystery. For those drawn to Hollow Earth theories, his journeys stand as tantalizing evidence that there may indeed be entrances to hidden civilizations at the poles. For skeptics, they are a case study in how easily myths can grow from a mixture of ambiguous remarks, forged documents, and human longing for discovery. What is certain is that Byrd's story became a turning point. After him, the Hollow Earth was no longer just ancient myth or Renaissance speculation. It had stepped firmly into the modern age, tied to contemporary exploration, military secrecy, and the dawning era of UFOs. Whether truth or fiction, Byrd's legacy deepened the mystery and left the world wondering what really lies beyond the ice. Long before the polar expeditions of the 20th century, the myths of North America told of peoples who had already gone beneath the earth. Among the Hopi, the stories of the ant people remain some of the most vivid accounts of subterranean beings, woven into oral tradition and passed carefully from generation to generation. These tales do not speak of metaphorical realms of the dead or allegories for spiritual states, but of living helpers who intervened in times of catastrophe, drawing humanity into the safety of underground passageways. According to Hopi tradition, the ant people came twice. During the First World, when fire consumed the surface, they opened their homes below and took the survivors into their caverns. In the Second World, when floods drowned the land, they did the same. The Hopi described these beings with distinctive features: tall, thin, with elongated heads and large, luminous eyes adapted to darkness. They taught survival, sharing food and knowledge, before eventually guiding humanity back to the surface to rebuild anew. To modern anthropologists, the ant people may represent a symbolic memory of real events. Some suggest they could be echoes of tribes who sheltered in caves during droughts or disasters, offering aid to others. Others propose that the stories preserve memories of actual catastrophic events, like volcanic eruptions or massive floods, in which survival truly did depend on subterranean refuge. Still others point to the caves and dwellings across the American Southwest, such as the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, or the intricate caves along the Grand Canyon, as evidence that life underground was once a practical reality. Historians still debate whether these stories are purely symbolic or rooted in collective memory of survival strategies. Yet the Hopi are not alone in such accounts. Across the continent, native traditions recall beings from beneath the earth. The Zuni spoke of emerging from underground kivas into the daylight, while the Mandan tribe told of a time when their ancestors lived in a subterranean village until they were guided upward. Even the Sioux carried stories of people beneath, guardians who occasionally rose to the surface. These recurring motifs suggest a deep cultural resonance with the idea that humanity's origins, or at least its survival, may be tied to hidden spaces below. The Grand Canyon itself has long fueled speculation. In 1909, the Arizona Gazette published an article describing a supposed discovery of vast caves filled with artifacts of an unknown civilization, complete with hieroglyphic markings and statues. The report claimed that the Smithsonian Institution was involved, though no evidence has ever been found in official records. Many believe the story was a fabrication, a product of the newspaper's imagination. Yet for Hollow Earth enthusiasts, it became another piece of circumstantial evidence that ancient civilizations once thrived beneath the soil of North America. A strange, off-topic but connected event occurred in 1902, when miners in South Dakota claimed to have discovered a massive cavern filled with fossilized bones of mammoths and other creatures perfectly preserved. The cave, later named Wind Cave, turned out to be real, though not filled with lost civilizations. Today, it is known as one of the longest cave systems in the world, with over 140 miles of mapped passageways. While it holds no secret societies, its labyrinthine complexity demonstrates how much of the earth beneath us remains unseen. Modern geology reinforces this sense of the unknown. Subterranean networks of caves and aquifers stretch across continents, many unmapped. The Mammoth Cave System in Kentucky, the longest known in the world, spans over 400 miles and continues to reveal new passages. In 2018, explorers discovered new chambers in Lechuguilla Cave in New Mexico, including mineral formations that had never before been documented. These discoveries illustrate that vast and alien worlds exist just beneath our feet, accessible only through narrow entrances and endless patience. Could the ant people have been symbolic memories of real cave-dwelling peoples, whose aid during natural disasters became mythologized over centuries? Or could the stories point to something more mysterious, an enduring tradition that humanity was not alone in the depths? Some suggest that descriptions of large eyes and thin bodies could be rooted in real encounters with unfamiliar tribes, or perhaps distorted memories of extinct species of hominins. Others argue that they reflect archetypal images of beings suited to darkness, born of imagination rather than history. The debate endures, unresolved. For the Hopi, these stories are sacred, part of their understanding of the cycles of worlds and the responsibilities of humanity. For scholars, they are windows into how cultures explain catastrophe and survival. For those drawn to Hollow Earth theories, they are tantalizing fragments of proof that contact with subterranean civilizations may have once occurred. Thus, from the deserts of the American Southwest to the icy poles, the echoes converge. Across time and geography, cultures tell of helpers from below, guardians of hidden realms, and passages into worlds unseen. The Hopi Ant people stand among the clearest voices in this chorus, reminding us that the mystery of the earth beneath us is not confined to myth, but also to memory, belief, and lived experience. Beneath the crust of the earth, hidden far from human sight, there may exist not only caverns but oceans. The possibility of subterranean seas has haunted both science and legend. A vision of water flowing endlessly beneath the land, feeding rivers and perhaps sustaining entire ecosystems invisible to us. Myths of hidden waters are as old as civilization itself, but only recently has science uncovered evidence suggesting that vast reservoirs truly exist in the deep mantle. The line between story and geology blurs, and with it, speculation about what such hidden oceans could mean for the idea of inner civilizations. In Babylonian myth, creation began with the mingling of the saltwater goddess Tiamat and the freshwater god Apsu, deities who represented the primeval waters beneath the earth. The Mesopotamians believed these waters lay beneath the surface, vast and eternal, feeding rivers like the Euphrates and Tigris. To them, water did not fall from the heavens but surged upward from subterranean realms. The Egyptians, too, spoke of none, the primordial waters beneath creation, an endless abyss upon which the world floated. These were not allegories in the modern sense, but cosmologies rooted in daily experience. Springs, wells, and floods emerging mysteriously from the earth itself. In medieval Europe, scholars speculated about vast reservoirs beneath the ground, imagining that earthquakes and floods might be caused by hidden seas bursting forth. The idea persisted into the scientific revolution, where thinkers like Athanasius Kircher in the 17th century drew elaborate maps of underground rivers flowing through the body of Earth like veins. Though these diagrams were speculative, they reveal how persistent the notion was that beneath the soil lay not just stone but water, endless water. Modern science has brought surprising confirmation. In 2014, geophysicists announced evidence of a hidden reservoir of water locked within ringwoodite crystals deep in the Earth's mantle, nearly 700 kilometers below the surface. This water is not liquid in vast caverns, but chemically bound within minerals, yet its volume may be staggering, perhaps 3 times that of all the oceans on the surface combined. Though this discovery does not mean subterranean seas in the classical sense, it demonstrates that Earth's interior holds unimaginable amounts of water, blurring the line between myth and geology. Historians still debate whether ancient cosmologies arose from vague recognition of such truths or from symbolic necessity. But what if, beyond trapped water in minerals, there truly are vast liquid-filled caverns? In the 2000s, scientists explored Dragon's Breath Cave in Namibia, a subterranean lake estimated to be the largest non-glacial underground lake in the world. Its waters stretch far beyond what divers have been able to reach. In Romania, Movel Cave was discovered to contain a sealed ecosystem, cut off from the surface for millions of years, with over 30 unique species surviving in toxic gases and darkness. These real examples fuel speculation that hidden worlds beneath the crust may harbour life unknown to us. A strange and seemingly unrelated event occurred in 1812, when the New Madrid earthquakes shook the Mississippi Valley with such force that the river briefly ran backward. Eyewitnesses reported fountains of sand and water shooting from the ground, as if hidden seas had erupted beneath their feet. While geologists explain this as liquefaction caused by seismic pressure, the spectacle of water gushing from below left deep impressions, convincing some that vast reservoirs lay hidden under the continent. Could such underground waters sustain civilizations? Some theorists imagine vast caverns lit by bioluminescent fungi or geothermal heat, with lakes providing food and fish for unseen societies. Skeptics counter that the physics of pressure and temperature would make such environments inhospitable. Yet even mainstream science admits that microbial life thrives in extreme subterranean conditions, feeding on chemical reactions in complete darkness. If microbes can persist, the leap to more complex ecosystems, at least in theory, is not impossible. The hypothesis is simple yet profound. If vast underground oceans exist, they could serve as both barriers and sanctuaries. They may isolate entire ecosystems, preserving life forms lost on the surface. They may even, in the more imaginative reaches of speculation, provide the lifeblood for civilizations that fled beneath the earth in ancient times. Could Atlantis or its survivors have retreated not only into myth, but into the caverns sustained by hidden seas? The debate continues. For geologists, subterranean water is a matter of mineral chemistry and plate tectonics. For mythologists, it is the echo of creation stories and world floods. For those who dream of Hollow Earth civilizations, it is the key to explaining how such societies could endure in the darkness, supplied with water, food, and hidden ecosystems. The possibility of subterranean floods reshapes the imagination. It suggests that the boundaries between surface and depths are not absolute, that water flows endlessly between, and that beneath the ground may lie oceans as mysterious as those we cross above. As long as the deep remains largely unmapped, the vision of secret civilizations sustained by hidden seas cannot be entirely dismissed. If subterranean, oceans hint at hidden life. The discovery of vast underground cities raises an even sharper question. Could entire civilizations have once thrived beneath the surface? Archaeology has uncovered astonishing examples of human ingenuity underground, blurring the line between myth and reality. These findings do not prove the existence of lost kingdoms like Agartha or Shambhala, but they show that human beings have long turned to the depths for safety, survival, and secrecy. Perhaps the most striking example lies in Cappadocia, in central Turkey. Beneath its volcanic plateau, riddled with soft, tough stone, lie sprawling underground cities such as Derinkuyu and Kaymakli. Derinkuyu, the largest known, could house as many as 20,000 people. Its passages extend downward across multiple levels, complete with ventilation shafts, stables, wells, kitchens, and even chapels. Archaeologists believe these labyrinths were carved as early as the 1st millennium BCE, later expanded by early Christians seeking refuge from persecution. To walk within them is to enter a world deliberately hidden, a city designed to vanish beneath the earth. Derinkuyu is not alone. Across Cappadocia, hundreds of such subterranean complexes have been found, interconnected by tunnels stretching for miles. The scale of these constructions astonishes scholars even today. They are evidence that vast populations lived and thrived underground, at least temporarily, protected from enemies above. While mainstream history sees them as defensive refuges, Hollow Earth enthusiasts seize upon them as proof that large-scale subterranean living is not only possible but has precedent. Historians still debate the precise origins and extent of these underground cities, leaving room for speculation. Elsewhere, similar structures appear. In Malta, the Halsaflieni Hypogeum, dating to around 4000 BCE, is a 3-level underground temple complex carved with remarkable precision. Its chambers include acoustic features that amplify sound in ways modern engineers still study. Some theorists suggest it was used for ritual contact with the underworld, while others propose it was part of a hidden tradition of subterranean worship. Its scale and purpose remain enigmatic, leaving archaeologists to wonder whether it was symbolic or functional, or perhaps both. In the Andes, stories of tunnels beneath Cusco speak of treasures hidden by the Inca before the Spanish conquest. Some chronicles describe labyrinths extending for miles, though most entrances have collapsed or remain unverified. In 2000, researchers rediscovered parts of the Chincana labyrinths on the island of the Sun in Lake Titicaca, lending some credibility to the old legends. Whether these tunnels were intended as storage, ritual passages, or secret escape routes, they add to the global pattern of vast human-made spaces beneath the surface. One strange, off-topic but noteworthy event occurred in 1972, when workers drilling in Oklahoma reported hearing hollow sounds and voices coming from deep within the ground. The story spread in sensationalist newspapers and later inspired tales of hell sounds, recordings supposedly captured from deep drilling projects in Siberia. While these recordings have been debunked as hoaxes, their popularity reveals how easily real drilling projects feed into myths of vast hollows beneath the crust. Science grounds these speculations. Geological studies confirm that caverns and tunnels exist naturally across the world, created by volcanic activity, erosion, or tectonic shifts. Lava tubes, such as those in Hawaii or Iceland, can extend for miles underground, forming natural highways beneath the surface. The largest known lava tube on Earth, in Lanzarote's Cueva de los Verdes, stretches over 8 kilometers. These natural wonders offer blueprints for what vast subterranean environments might look like, independent of human construction. The question arises, could civilizations beyond our own have harnessed such environments, creating cities deeper than we have yet found? Some theorists argue that legends of Agartha and Shambhala may reflect distorted memories of ancient subterranean cultures whose true scale has been lost to history. Others suggest that humans, forced by cataclysm or invasion, may have once lived underground for generations, leaving behind only fragments of their legacy. Archaeology points toward possibility but not proof. The underground cities of Cappadocia, the temples of Malta, and the tunnels of the Andes all show that large-scale subterranean life was not only imagined but achieved. Yet they remain tied to surface societies designed for refuge or ritual rather than permanent habitation. For the Hollow Earth hypothesis, they are stepping stones, glimpses of what could be, if not what is. The debate remains unresolved. Were these vast underground structures simply refuges, or do they reflect a deeper, older tradition of subterranean existence that myths like Agartha preserve? Scholars continue to disagree, and the silence of the Earth offers no answer. Still, each new discovery, another labyrinth, another passageway, keeps the possibility alive that somewhere, hidden deeper than any archaeologist has dug, lies a civilization that never returned to the surface. The Earth trembles. It always has. For most of human history, earthquakes were regarded as messages from the gods, signs of punishment, or the struggles of unseen creatures shifting in the depths. Today, geologists explain them through the science of plate tectonics, the grinding of continental slabs across molten layers, the sudden release of stress where faults catch and slip. Yet for centuries, strange tremors and unexplained vibrations have also been interpreted as signs of something more, perhaps movement within the deep, deep beyond the reach of ordinary science. In ancient Japan, earthquakes were said to be caused by the giant catfish Namazu thrashing beneath the ground. In Norse tradition, tremors were linked to the writhing of Loki, bound beneath the earth, his struggles shaking the land. The Greeks spoke of Poseidon, Earthshaker, striking with his trident to unleash tremors. Each culture saw earthquakes as more than mere physical events, They were signals of hidden power beneath the soil. Historians still debate whether such myths were purely symbolic or whether they reflected attempts to explain unusual seismic patterns observed in antiquity. One of the most dramatic examples of subterranean mystery occurred in 1811 to 1812 during the New Madrid earthquakes in the Mississippi Valley. The quakes were so powerful that they rang church bells in Boston and permanently altered the course of the Mississippi River, making it flow backward for a time. Eyewitnesses reported strange lights in the sky, explosions of sand and water from the ground, and roaring sounds like thunder from below. Geologists today attribute these phenomena to liquefaction and the piezoelectric effect of quartz under pressure. Yet to those who lived through it, it seemed as though the earth itself was alive, groaning and reshaping as if in pain. In more recent times, unusual seismic events have deepened the mystery. In 1997, seismographs across the globe recorded a strange hum emanating from deep within the earth, lasting for days. This tremor was not linked to any earthquake or volcanic activity. Scientists eventually connected it to ocean waves interacting with the seafloor, but fringe theorists interpreted it differently, as the movements of something vast, hidden, perhaps even artificial within the crust. Even stranger are the so-called mystery booms, reported in various regions of the world. In the 1970s and 80s, residents of the eastern United States frequently described loud, unexplained detonations, shaking houses and rattling windows. Seismographs registered little or nothing. Similar reports have surfaced in Italy, India, and the Middle East, sometimes accompanied by faint vibrations. Explanations range from sonic booms to small earthquakes, but no consensus exists. To some, these are echoes of subterranean activity not yet understood. One off-topic but illustrative event occurred in 2018, when a peculiar seismic wave travelled around the entire globe. It began near the French island of Mayotte, east of Africa, and circled the planet for 20 minutes, ringing seismographs worldwide. No human could feel it, and its pattern was unlike any known earthquake. Scientists later linked it to a massive movement of magma beneath the seafloor, yet the sheer strangeness of the event sparked whispers that something deeper, stranger, might have been stirring. The link between tremors and hidden civilizations emerges from this ambiguity. If earthquakes represent the shifting of plates, might unexplained vibrations suggest something else? Some theorists argue that movements deep below, regular, patterned, and unconnected to fault lines, could be the byproduct of subterranean societies, machinery, construction, or energy sources we do not yet comprehend. Skeptics counter that every anomaly eventually yields to science, given time. Yet science itself acknowledges how incomplete our understanding is. Seismology relies on the interpretation of waves travelling through the Earth's layers, and while it has mapped much of the crust and mantle, enormous uncertainties remain. In 2019, researchers discovered massive continent-sized structures at the boundary between the mantle and core, composed of dense material whose origin is unknown. These blobs, as scientists call them, lie thousands of kilometres down, far beyond direct observation. What they are, and why they exist, remains a mystery. The hypothesis lingers. Could tremors, hums, and anomalies be signs not only of geological processes, but of hidden activity? Could subterranean civilizations, if they exist, generate seismic patterns detectable on the surface? It is a question that cannot yet be answered, but one that keeps the door ajar. The debate endures. To mainstream geology, earthquakes and tremors are well explained by physics, chemistry, and tectonic pressure. To cultural historians, they are evidence of humanity's age-old attempt to make sense of disaster through myth. But to those who look beneath the surface for hidden kingdoms, every unexplained vibration is one more hint that the Earth may not be silent after all. If tremors hint at motion beneath the surface, then heat suggests energy. For centuries, the Earth has been imagined not only as a vessel of hidden civilizations, but as a furnace of untapped power. From volcanic eruptions that spew fire across the sky to the quiet warmth of hot springs, humanity has always sensed the energy locked beneath the ground. In the context of subterranean civilizations, this energy is often imagined not as a hazard, but as a resource, a vast natural power source capable of sustaining hidden worlds for millennia. In the Roman world, the baths of Caracalla drew water from geothermal springs, transforming the Earth's heat into luxury and ritual. Across Asia, cultures built entire healing traditions around hot springs, believing them to be gifts from below. Icelanders used volcanic steam to warm their homes long before the modern age. All of these examples testify to humanity's recognition that the Earth produces usable power. Historians still debate whether early peoples thought of these energies purely as gifts of nature or as signs of divine presence. The idea that a subterranean civilization could harness geothermal power is not beyond imagination. In 1904, Prince Piero Ginori Conti tested the first geothermal generator in Italy, producing electricity from steam drawn from the earth. Today, geothermal plants power entire regions, particularly in Iceland and the Philippines. If surface civilizations can achieve this, why could not an ancient or hidden society far beneath the crust have tapped into similar resources long ago? One strange yet telling event occurred in 1986 at Lake Nyos in Cameroon. Without warning, the lake released a massive cloud of carbon dioxide, suffocating over 1,700 people in nearby villages. Scientists later explained that magma beneath the lake had slowly charged the water with gas until it was suddenly released. This disaster revealed how volatile subterranean energy can be, but also how immense its scale is. If gases and heat can accumulate unseen, the possibility arises that advanced societies might learn to harness them, rather than fall victim to their eruptions. Science provides both inspiration and limits. Geothermal energy originates from the decay of radioactive elements and residual heat from Earth's formation, radiating upward from the core. The crust acts as an insulating blanket, yet in certain regions, especially near volcanic zones, this energy becomes accessible. Theorists suggest that if vast cavern systems exist near such hotspots, a hidden civilization might thrive on geothermal warmth, using steam for power, light, and even agriculture. Hydrothermal vents in the ocean offer a striking parallel. There, in total darkness, ecosystems flourish around boiling water, supported not by sunlight, but by chemical reactions. Legends, too, hint at fiery realms below. In Hindu tradition, the Patala is a subterranean domain, inhabited by serpent-like beings, illuminated not by the sun but by jewels that radiate light. Some scholars interpret these descriptions as metaphors for geothermal brilliance, glowing minerals, volcanic heat, and subterranean flames. In Dante's Inferno, hell itself is imagined as a cavernous descent, where fire and ice coexist in paradoxical balance, suggesting that even in literature the earth below is seen as a place of both punishment and energy. Yet the notion of subterranean civilizations using geothermal power is speculative. Could advanced cultures truly have developed isolated beneath the crust, maintaining complex societies without access to the surface? Skeptics argue that heat at depth is too extreme, pressure too crushing, and resources too scarce. But proponents counter with examples like extremophiles, organisms living deep within rock, feeding on chemical energy. If microbes can adapt to such extremes, the leap to more complex systems remains within the realm of hypothesis. The debate circles endlessly. Scientists map geothermal zones with satellites, drilling cautiously into the crust to capture its warmth. Mythologists trace the recurrence of fiery underworlds in global traditions, and theorists of Hollow Earth imagine entire cities lit by the glow of magma, powered by steam rising from fissures. Whether metaphor, science, or speculation, the idea remains the same. The earth below is alive, and its energy is boundless. This vision reshapes how subterranean civilizations are imagined. They are not dark, cold, and lifeless, but radiant, sustained by the very fire that threatens the surface with destruction. If such societies exist, they may have mastered the art of drawing life from the depths, turning disaster into survival. The question lingers: if humans on the surface can achieve geothermal power only in the last century, what might a hidden people, with thousands of years of adaptation, have done beneath the earth? Across every continent, folklore carries the faint echo of voices rising from below. These are not always stories of radiant kingdoms or vast caverns, but simpler, stranger whispers of beings who live beneath the soil. The recurrence of such tales suggests a deep pattern in the human imagination, one that may point towards something more than coincidence. From Europe to Asia, Africa to the Americas, humanity has spoken of underground dwellers, shaping a collective myth that refuses to fade. In medieval Europe, peasants spoke of chthonic people, earthbound folk who mined in silence, emerging only rarely. In Germany, these became the Bergmännlein, tiny miners believed to live within the rock, skilled in metals and jewels. In Scandinavia, dwarves were imagined as subterranean craftsmen, forging weapons of power in hidden halls. Though often seen as mythological, their stories reflect the reality of miners' lives. Men descending into darkness, hearing echoes and knocks in the rock that seem to belong to someone unseen. Historians still debate whether such myths arose as metaphor, superstition, or memories of earlier real encounters. In Africa, traditions vary widely, but several peoples tell of underground realms. The Dogon of Mali describe contact with beings from beneath and beyond, who taught them about the stars and the cycles of time. Though most scholars interpret these tales as symbolic or misrepresented by outsiders, they echo the global motif of wisdom hidden beneath. Meanwhile, Zulu stories speak of Abantu Bomlaba, people of the earth, who live in vast subterranean spaces, surfacing only at night. In Asia, the Chinese told of immortal grottos, hidden caves where sages withdrew to escape the corruption of the surface. These caves were not mere retreats, but gateways to realms of long life and hidden light. Japanese folklore described the Tengu, sometimes linked to mountains and caves, guardians of knowledge concealed within the earth. In India, the Nagas were serpent beings who dwelt in splendid underground palaces, rich with treasure and wisdom. The Americas, too, preserved these whispers. The Cherokee told of the moon-eyed people, pale beings who lived beneath the mountains, emerging only at night because sunlight blinded them. The Mandan tribe of the plains recounted that their ancestors once lived underground, until they followed a guiding spirit to the surface. These stories, scattered across geography, converge in their theme: humanity's relationship with those who dwell below. One strange but instructive off-topic event occurred in 1945, when miners in Bolivia reported hearing rhythmic pounding beneath them, as though from another group of miners working in hidden shafts. Yet no other groups were present. The sounds persisted for weeks, accompanied by cave-ins in unrelated sections of the mine. Geologists attributed this to shifting rock and echoes, but to those who lived it, the noises suggested invisible neighbours. Modern science offers several frameworks for these recurring patterns. Psychologists argue that caves represent the unconscious mind, and that myths of subterranean beings are projections of humanity's own hidden fears and desires. Anthropologists point to the practical experience of cave-dwelling peoples, whose lives underground naturally gave rise to myths of others dwelling still deeper. Geologists, meanwhile, emphasize the natural acoustics of caverns, drips, collapses, and echoing cracks that sound uncannily like voices or footsteps. And yet, questions remain. Why do so many cultures independently imagine not just spirits, but organized societies beneath the ground? Could this be a coincidence of human imagination, shaped by the universal experience of caves? Or could it reflect a shared memory of real encounters, perhaps with other human groups who once lived underground during times of catastrophe? The hypothesis persists. If subterranean civilizations once existed, even briefly, their memory could have entered folklore, spreading across generations until it became myth. The luminous-eyed beings of the Hopi, the pale, moon-eyed people of the Cherokee, the serpent kings of India, each may represent fragments of a larger story, distorted through time. Skeptics argue that similarities arise simply because caves are universal, but believers point to the uncanny consistency of details across cultures, oceans apart. The debate is open. Scholars argue, believers speculate, and the stories endure. Beneath the soil of every land there remains not only stone and silence, but the echoes of whispers, the memory of beings who may have once called the deep earth home. If Earth itself is imagined as hollow, then the mystery widens when one looks up at the sky. For centuries, humanity has not only speculated about hidden worlds beneath its feet, but also wondered whether other celestial bodies might conceal similar secrets. The moon, in particular, has drawn suspicion. Its grey face, cratered and still, has long been a mirror for human imagination. In recent decades, theories of a hollow moon have been linked to the broader hollow Earth hypothesis, as if the two worlds share a hidden architecture. The first seeds of this idea were planted not by mystics but by scientists. During the Apollo missions, astronauts placed seismic instruments on the lunar surface. In 1969, after the lunar module Eagle returned to orbit, the spent ascent stage was deliberately crashed into the moon. To the surprise of scientists, the moon rang like a bell for nearly an hour, its vibrations echoing far longer than expected. Similar experiments with subsequent missions produced the same result: extended seismic reverberations unlike anything observed on Earth. NASA researchers explain this as a consequence of the moon's dry, rigid structure and its lack of water to dampen vibrations. Yet to others, it sounded like hollow resonance, a suggestion that the moon might be more cavernous than scientists admitted. Historians still debate whether the phrase "rang like a bell" was intended literally or figuratively. The idea of a hollow moon was not entirely new. In the 1960s, Soviet scientists Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Shcherbakov proposed the radical spaceship moon hypothesis. They speculated that the moon might be an artificial construct, hollowed and placed in orbit by unknown intelligences. While mainstream science dismissed this as fantasy, the hypothesis captured imaginations, blending with hollow Earth speculation to suggest that both Earth and Moon conceal vast hidden interiors. One strange off-topic event occurred in 1977 when radio astronomers detected what became known as the WOW signal, a mysterious burst of energy from space lasting 72 seconds. Though unrelated to the Moon, it fueled speculation about extraterrestrial intelligence. For some fringe theorists, it offered circumstantial support that advanced beings, perhaps the same who built subterranean worlds on Earth, might also have engineered or occupied the Moon. Legends too contribute to the intrigue. Ancient cultures often spoke of a time before the Moon existed. The Chibcha of Colombia and the indigenous peoples of Africa preserved stories of an age when the sky was dark, before a celestial orb was placed above. Aristotle himself recorded that certain Arcadian tribes claimed their ancestors lived before the moon was in the heavens. Such myths have been interpreted as metaphors for prehistory, but they also raise questions. Why do multiple cultures recall a time before the moon? Could they preserve a memory of astronomical changes, or of an encounter with the moon when it appeared different than it does today? Science offers grounding. The prevailing theory, the giant impact hypothesis, suggests that the moon was formed billions of years ago from debris after a Mars-sized object collided with Earth. Its density, seismic data, and composition indicate a solid though unusual structure, not a hollow one. Still, anomalies remain. Unusual mass concentrations beneath lunar basins, magnetic fields that should not exist, and the unexplained depth of certain craters. Each of these mysteries leaves small spaces for speculation to grow. The connection between hollow Earth and hollow Moon theories emerges here. If our nearest celestial neighbour could be imagined as hollow, then Earth's own legends of subterranean realms seem less outlandish to those inclined towards speculation. Some suggest that both bodies share a hidden architecture, perhaps the work of natural processes we do not yet understand, or even of intelligences older than humankind. The debate continues. To planetary scientists, the Moon is a dry, geologically complex satellite whose mysteries are slowly yielding to study. To mythologists, it is a celestial twin of Earth, echoing its underworld myths in the heavens. And to hollow Earth believers, it is one more piece of circumstantial evidence that worlds within worlds may be the rule, not the exception. The Moon hangs in the sky, silent yet suggestive, its pockmarked face a reminder of how little we truly know. As with Earth, so with the Moon, what appears barren on the surface may conceal secrets that whisper of civilizations unseen. Across the world's sacred texts, there runs a constant refrain. Beneath the earth lies more than stone and fire. Religion has long described hidden realms, sometimes as places of punishment, sometimes as paradises, and sometimes as sanctuaries of powerful beings who dwell away from the surface. These stories blur the line between spiritual allegory and possible memory of subterranean domains, reinforcing the idea that civilizations below may not simply be myth, but echoes of something older. In Christian tradition, the underworld is usually imagined as hell, a realm of fire, suffering, and shadow. Medieval theologians believed it to be literally beneath the ground, an inverted kingdom beneath the crust of earth. Dante's Inferno depicts hell as a vast descending funnel of circles, each deeper than the last, reaching the frozen centre where Satan himself is bound. While this vision is symbolic, it reflects a cosmology in which the interior of Earth is not lifeless rock but structured realms, inhabited and organised. Historians still debate whether medieval scholars viewed this as purely metaphorical or as a physical geography of the soul. In Hinduism, there is a more complex vision, the Patala realms. Beneath the earth lie 7 regions, inhabited by serpent beings known as Nagas, who live in splendid palaces adorned with gems. Unlike Christian hell, Patala is not a place of torment but of beauty, wealth, and knowledge. Its palaces are said to glow with radiant jewels that provide light in the absence of the sun. This subterranean kingdom is ruled by Vasuki, king of serpents, and guarded by divine forces. Whether seen as myth or metaphysics, Patala envisions the world beneath as populated, ordered, and full of life. Islam, too, preserves hints of hidden depths. The Quran speaks of layers of the earth, each with its own mysteries, and of the jinn, beings of smokeless fire who can live in deserts, ruins, and sometimes beneath the ground. Folklore across the Islamic world describes jinn inhabiting caves and subterranean passages, often guarding treasures or ancient knowledge. These beings exist alongside humanity yet remain concealed, a theme resonant with Hollow Earth speculation. In Buddhism, Shambhala remains the most famous subterranean paradise, but beyond it are other realms described in the sutras. Some texts mention entire worlds within mountains or beneath the land, accessible only to those with spiritual clarity. Taoist legends in China echo this, describing immortal grottos as both spiritual gateways and literal hidden caves, where sages withdrew to commune with eternity. Even indigenous traditions carry these echoes. The Navajo speak of previous worlds beneath this one, from which humanity ascended through a reed into the present. The Aztec described Mictlan, the layered underworld through which souls travelled after death. The Maori of New Zealand told of Rarohenga, a hidden world below where ancestors dwell. Across continents, the pattern repeats. Beneath us lie other worlds, some terrible, some wondrous, but always inhabited. One strange and seemingly unrelated event occurred in 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered hidden within caves near Qumran. While not evidence of subterranean civilizations, their discovery in the earth itself carried symbolic weight, sacred knowledge preserved in darkness, waiting to be revealed. The image of wisdom concealed underground resonates with myths of Agartha and Patala, where hidden societies guard knowledge until the world is ready. Modern religious scholarship often interprets these accounts as allegories, descriptions of inner states, spiritual journeys, or moral lessons. Yet the persistence of physical imagery, palaces, jewels, rivers, cities, invites speculation. Could these stories preserve cultural memories of ancient peoples who truly lived underground, their existence transformed into sacred myth? Or are they purely metaphor, the universal human need to locate mystery below? The hypothesis endures. Perhaps religions are not simply inventing unseen realms, but encoding fragments of forgotten history. The serpentine nagas, the jinn in caves, the radiant palaces beneath the soil, all may be distant echoes of civilizations or cultures that retreated underground, remembered imperfectly through sacred imagination. The debate is open, unresolved. Theologians emphasize metaphor, archaeologists point to cultural necessity, and believers in hidden civilizations hear in these sacred texts the faint testimony of worlds once known. Whatever the truth, the recurrence of subterranean realms in religion strengthens the sense that the earth beneath us is more than silent stone. It is a canvas upon which humanity has painted both its fears and its hopes, its hells and its paradises. If myth and religion describe hidden realms in symbolic language, then the science of caves provides physical evidence of how alien the underground can be, even without human imagination. Caves are not merely hollows in rock, they are entire worlds, with their own climates, ecosystems and landscapes. Within them, explorers find forests of stone, rivers that vanish into darkness, and creatures that seem more suited to another planet than to Earth. These discoveries do not prove the existence of advanced civilizations underground, but they demonstrate that life thrives in places long thought inhospitable, feeding speculation that something more might lie deeper still. Consider the sheer scale of Earth's known cave systems. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky stretches for more than 400 miles, making it the longest known cave in the world, and it is still being mapped. Lechuguilla Cave in New Mexico plunges more than 1,600 feet, revealing chambers filled with rare minerals, gypsum chandeliers, and passages coated in crystals untouched by light. In Vietnam, Sondung Cave is so vast that it contains its own jungle, river, and weather system, with clouds forming inside its cavernous expanse. These discoveries remind us that beneath our feet lie realms large enough to feel like countries in their own right. Life within these caves is stranger still. In Movil Cave, Romania, sealed off from the surface for 5.5 million years, scientists discovered an ecosystem entirely independent of sunlight. The creatures within, including blind spiders, leeches, and a new species of scorpion, survive on chemosynthesis, feeding off sulfur and methane from the rock. No sunlight, no photosynthesis, and yet life endures. The cave is toxic to humans, but thriving with organisms that adapted to its alien environment. Historians still debate whether legends of glowing underground worlds may have been inspired, at least in part, by encounters with caves that produce strange light from minerals or bioluminescence. In Mexico's Cave of the Crystals, discovered in 2000, explorers found selenite crystals so enormous that they dwarf the human body. Some measured over 30 feet long, shimmering like the columns of a palace. The chamber's heat and humidity make it nearly impossible to survive inside for long, yet it offers a glimpse into geological forces that shape surreal environments far below. The sight of such colossal crystal formations seems almost like the architecture of a hidden civilization sculpted by nature's hand. One off-topic but relevant event occurred in 1976, when a group of divers explored the cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula. These sinkholes, sacred to the Maya, were found to be entrances into vast flooded cave systems stretching for miles. Archaeologists uncovered offerings, bones and artifacts at their depths. To the Maya, cenotes were portals to Xibalba, the underworld. Modern science confirmed that they were both life-giving water sources and passages into astonishing subterranean landscapes. The convergence of myth and geology is striking. Modern biology has transformed caves into laboratories of possibility. Extremophiles, microbes that survive in acidic pools, frozen rock, or boiling vents, suggest that life's limits are broader than once believed. In some caves, entire ecosystems thrive on nothing more than the chemical reactions of rock and water. If this can occur here, cut off from sunlight, then why not in vast hidden caverns deeper within the crust? Could there exist environments where not just microbes, but more complex life forms have endured unnoticed? Some theorists propose that ancient humans who entered vast caves and encountered pale, eyeless creatures may have woven those experiences into myths of subterranean peoples. The resemblance between cave-adapted animals, pale, thin, with large eyes, and descriptions of ant people or moon-eyed beings is uncanny. Perhaps what began as encounters with specialized animals became embellished into stories of whole societies dwelling in the dark. Others argue that the scale of caves like Sondung or Lechugila demonstrates that nature herself creates settings vast enough to support not just creatures, but perhaps even communities. The hypothesis remains open. Could real subterranean civilizations, if they existed, have made use of such cave systems as foundations for survival? The archaeological record shows that humans throughout history have lived in caves during times of need, from Paleolithic shelters to the underground cities of Cappadocia. Science shows that ecosystems can exist cut off from the sun. Myths show that cultures across the world remember beings dwelling beneath. The convergence of these lines leaves space for speculation. The debate endures. To geologists, caves are natural wonders shaped by water, heat, and time. To biologists, they are crucibles of adaptation. To mythologists, they are sources of stories that echo humanity's deepest fears and hopes. And to those who seek hidden civilizations, they are tantalizing hints that what lies beneath the crust is not lifeless, but rich, strange, and perhaps still inhabited. When the earth convulses and the skies darken, civilizations fall. Throughout history, natural catastrophes have erased cities, ended empires, and forced survivors to adapt in desperate ways. Some myths suggest that during such catastrophes, entire peoples did not merely scatter or perish, they descended. The notion that survivors of ancient cataclysms retreated beneath the earth recurs in traditions worldwide, raising the question of whether subterranean civilizations may be the remnants of lost ages, still persisting in hidden domains. The most famous catastrophe of all is the flood. In Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Utnapishtim, who survived the deluge sent by the gods. The Hebrew Bible preserves the same story in the figure of Noah. Across cultures, from India to China to the Americas, floods feature as world-ending events. While mainstream scholarship interprets these as cultural memories of regional floods, others argue they may preserve fragments of memory from a single, global cataclysm at the end of the last ice age. Historians still debate whether these accounts refer to localized disasters or to broader upheavals as ice sheets melted and seas rose dramatically. If the world above was drowned, it is not unthinkable that some survivors might have fled downward into caves and caverns where freshwater sources and shelter could be found. The Hopi ant people stories fit precisely into this framework. Humanity rescued by subterranean beings during times of fire and flood. Similar tales from Mesoamerica describe Xibalba, an underworld into which souls, and perhaps once people, descended when the surface was uninhabitable. Volcanic eruptions too reshaped human survival. In 1600, the eruption of Huayna Putina in Peru devastated Andean agriculture for years, its ash clouding skies as far away as Europe. In 1815, Tambora erupted in Indonesia, creating the year without a summer in 1816, leading to famine and migration. During such events, caves and underground refuges became shelters of necessity. Archaeologists in Iceland have uncovered evidence of communities using lava tubes as temporary dwellings in times of eruption. Myths of fiery underworlds may reflect not only imagination, but lived experience of survival in volcanic landscapes. One strange, off-topic event that illustrates this connection occurred in 1883, when Krakatoa erupted with such violence that its explosion was heard 3,000 miles away. Entire islands disappeared, and ash darkened skies worldwide. In the aftermath, rumours spread in Java and Sumatra of survivors retreating into hidden caves beneath the mountains, where they were said to remain for years before re-emerging. While little evidence supports such claims, the legend underscores humanity's instinct to imagine refuge in the depths when the surface is destroyed. The end of the Ice Age around 12,000 years ago provides another focal point. As glaciers melted, sea levels rose by over 100 metres, drowning vast tracts of land. Theories of Atlantis, first described by Plato, may reflect cultural memory of such a loss. If great coastal settlements were destroyed, it is plausible that some survivors fled inland or underground. Archaeological discoveries of Paleolithic cave paintings in Europe, such as those in Lascaux and Chauvet, remind us that early humans were already accustomed to descending into the earth, both for shelter and for ritual. Could entire communities have remained there when catastrophe struck? Science contributes its own mysterious evidence. Genetic studies reveal bottlenecks in human history, periods when populations were reduced to small numbers before expanding again. These bottlenecks often coincide with climatic catastrophes. Where did survivors endure such times? On mountains, on boats, or, as myth suggests, within the earth itself? The possibility that hidden populations retreated into subterranean sanctuaries during such periods remains speculative, but not beyond reason. The hypothesis is provocative. What if some myths of hidden civilizations do not describe imaginary kingdoms, but distorted memories of real survivors who found safety below when the world above was aflame or drowned? Could they, over centuries, have developed independently, their existence remembered only in whispered legends of beings beneath the earth? The debate is unresolved. To most scholars, myths of floods, fires, and underground refuges are allegories or fragmented memories of natural disasters. To others, they are tantalizing hints that survivors of forgotten cataclysms may still exist in unseen caverns, heirs to civilizations erased from history. In every disaster, humanity has looked for shelter. Sometimes that shelter was a ship, sometimes a mountain, and sometimes, perhaps, the deep earth itself. The legends of subterranean survivors may be the echo of this instinct, magnified by time into the stories of civilizations hidden below, waiting still in the dark. The story of subterranean civilizations does not belong only to myth, legend, or rumour. It has also entered the halls of scholarship, where historians, geologists, and fringe theorists have wrestled with the evidence, or the lack of it. Debates about hidden worlds beneath the earth have spanned centuries, with each new discovery of a cave, a tunnel, or a seismic anomaly reigniting arguments. These debates reveal not only what we know, but the boundaries of our knowledge, where speculation begins. In the 18th and 19th centuries, hollow earth theories gained temporary credibility among scientists. Figures like Edmund Halley, better known for Halley's Comet, proposed that Earth might consist of concentric shells, with luminous inner regions sustaining life. Later, John Cleves Sims Jr. argued for massive openings at the poles, leading to habitable interiors. While both ideas were eventually rejected as geology advanced, they illustrate how seriously the question was once considered. historians still debate whether Halley's model was intended as literal belief or as a provisional hypothesis to explain magnetic anomalies. By the 20th century, mainstream science had largely dismissed hollow Earth models. Seismology, developed after major earthquakes, revealed the structure of Earth's interior: crust, mantle, outer core, inner core. The way seismic waves travel through these layers suggests that Earth is solid, not hollow. Yet even here, anomalies exist. Seismologists have detected vast, dense structures at the boundary between the mantle and core, whose nature remains uncertain. Some scientists describe them as blobs of material, unlike anything else in Earth's geology. Could they be remnants of ancient processes, or something stranger? Debate continues. Meanwhile, archaeologists examining subterranean architecture, from Cappadocia to the Hippodrome of Malta, argue over their scale and purpose. Some see them purely as defensive refuges, others as ritual centres, still others as evidence of broader subterranean traditions. Fringe theorists go further, suggesting they are surface echoes of deeper civilizations that we have not yet uncovered. The mainstream holds firmly to functional explanations, but gaps in the record leave room for speculation. One strange, off-topic episode in this debate occurred in 1949, when Harvard scientist L. Sprague de Camp published Lost Continents, a book cataloguing myths of Atlantis, Lemuria, and other vanished worlds. While dismissive of their reality, de Camp acknowledged how persistent and widespread such legends were. His work inadvertently fueled further interest among fringe thinkers, who took the sheer universality of these stories as evidence that something must lie behind them. In modern academia, most historians and geologists view hollow Earth claims as pseudoscience, but even they admit that myths of underground realms deserve study for what they reveal about human culture. Psychologists interpret them as expressions of the unconscious, the underworld as a metaphor for hidden fears and desires. Anthropologists see them as reflections of real survival strategies, when people took shelter in caves during disasters. Religious scholars treat them as spiritual allegories, yet the arguments never entirely erase the possibility that something literal lies behind the stories. Fringe theorists, by contrast, argue that academic skepticism itself hides truths. They point to inconsistencies in exploration records, anomalies in seismic data, and the sheer persistence of myths as circumstantial evidence. Some claim that governments suppress discoveries of vast caverns, either for secrecy or to avoid panic. Others suggest that advanced subterranean civilizations may prefer to remain hidden, observing the surface world without revealing themselves. While unsupported by verifiable data, these theories thrive in the absence of complete knowledge. The debate itself becomes part of the story. For every new cave mapped, for every seismic anomaly explained, questions remain. Could we truly say with certainty that no hidden civilizations exist when so much of Earth's depths remain unexplored? Less than 1% of Earth's crust has been directly examined, and no human has descended beyond a fraction of its depth. The Kola superdeep borehole in Russia, drilled to 12 kilometers in the 1970s, remains the deepest hole ever created, and yet it barely scratches the surface of Earth's 6,400-kilometer radius. The contrast is striking. Our knowledge of outer space exceeds our direct exploration of the world beneath us. Thus, the scholarly debate remains unresolved. To most scientists, the idea of vast civilizations within the Earth is impossible under current physics and geology. To historians of myth, it is a cultural constant, worth studying for its symbolic value. And to those who keep the legend alive, it is evidence, waiting for discovery, its truth hidden not by stone, but by the limits of human certainty. When speculation about hidden civilizations beneath the Earth moved from folklore and myth into the modern age, it inevitably collided with the sphere of politics and secrecy. Governments, by their nature, hold knowledge away from the public eye, and where secrecy exists, speculation flourishes. Hollow Earth theorists, and those who believe in subterranean societies argue that global powers have long concealed discoveries of tunnels, caverns, and anomalies. Whether grounded in evidence or imagination, these conspiracies form one of the most enduring layers of the story. The roots of this suspicion trace back to the post-war era, when militaries began conducting polar expeditions and nuclear testing. Antarctica, remote and difficult to access, became a focal point. In 1959, 12 nations signed the Antarctic Treaty, declaring the continent dedicated to peaceful scientific research. To most, it was a triumph of international cooperation. To some, it was proof that governments were hiding something, perhaps entrances to hidden worlds beneath the ice. Why else, they asked, would nations with competing interests agree so quickly to restrict activity in such a resource-rich region? Historians still debate whether such suspicions were fueled more by genuine secrecy or by the allure of the unknown. The Cold War deepened these beliefs. In the 1960s and 70s, nuclear tests conducted underground produced unexpected seismic results, including long-lasting vibrations that some interpreted as resonances from hollow chambers. While scientists explained them as wave reflections through complex geology, fringe theorists argued that governments had discovered subterranean voids and were deliberately keeping the data classified. One strange, off-topic incident occurred in 1970, when the US drilled the Kola superdeep borehole in Soviet territory to a depth of over 12 kilometers. It remains the deepest artificial point ever created. Officially, the project was an attempt to study the Earth's crust. Unofficially, rumours abounded. Some claim that the drill broke into a massive cavern. Others circulated fabricated recordings of voices from hell, supposedly captured deep underground. Though the hell sounds were later exposed as hoaxes, they reinforced public suspicion that what lies beneath is not merely rock. Conspiracies also grew around missing explorers and censored reports. Admiral Byrd's alleged diary is one such example, widely dismissed as a forgery but still central to Hollow Earth lore. More recently, declassified military documents occasionally mention unexplained seismic anomalies or classified cave structures, which, though mundane in context, are seized upon by those who see confirmation of hidden knowledge. Science again provides a sobering perspective. Much of Earth remains unexplored simply because it is difficult, dangerous and costly to reach. Mapping ocean floors only began in earnest in the 20th century, and even now large portions remain vague outlines. The same is true underground. Seismic studies can infer structures, but direct access is limited. Governments may keep discoveries secret not because of subterranean civilizations, but because of strategic resources, military installations, or simply incomplete data. Yet for believers, secrecy itself is proof. If vast caverns are discovered, why are they not shared? If anomalies exist, why are they downplayed? The answer, in this worldview, is that the truth of subterranean civilizations would destabilize established narratives, challenging both science and power. Some suggest that hidden societies prefer it this way, that agreements exist between surface governments and subterranean powers to preserve their secrecy. The hypothesis is provocative. What if the greatest cover-up is not of extraterrestrial life, but of civilizations already here, beneath our feet? Could governments be protecting the knowledge of entrances in Antarctica, the Himalayas, or even under American deserts? Skeptics counter that such theories rely on absence rather than presence. The absence of data becomes evidence, a logic that can never be disproven. Still, the debate endures. Conspiracies of government secrecy remain a central part of the Hollow Earth narrative, blending with history, politics, and science. They remind us that mysteries thrive where knowledge ends, and that the deeper the Earth remains unexplored, the more fertile the ground for suspicion becomes. The descent comes to its quietest depth. After myths of radiant kingdoms, after stories of explorers and maps and conspiracies, one final question remains. What if, beyond all legend and speculation, there truly is a civilization living inside the Earth? The idea, improbable yet persistent, has haunted human thought for millennia. Its power lies not only in what it says about the Earth, but about ourselves. The vision is compelling. Imagine caverns vast enough to hold rivers and forests, lit not by the sun but by geothermal light, or bioluminescent organisms that weave their glow into walls of stone. Imagine lakes of clear water fed by subterranean seas, and cities carved into crystal chambers, their halls echoing with voices that have not been heard on the surface for ages. The inhabitants may be descendants of ancient survivors, driven below by flood or fire, their knowledge preserved while ours was lost. Or they may be something older, a branch of humanity, or even of another species, that diverged long before recorded history. The myths all point in fragments. The Hopi ant people, the Hindu Nagas, the Norse dwarves, the Buddhist Shambhala, the Christian hell. Each describes a world below, sometimes benevolent, sometimes fearful, but always structured, always inhabited. Science adds its own fragments, cave systems large enough to contain, ecosystems, subterranean lakes sealed for millions of years, microbial life thriving in darkness, seismic anomalies deep within the mantle. None of these prove a hidden civilization, yet together they create an atmosphere of possibility. One strange and fitting event closes this trail of thought. In 2018, scientists discovered deep life, microbial organisms living as far as 5 kilometers below Earth's surface, in conditions once thought uninhabitable. These microbes may make up the majority of life on the planet, unseen and unknown until now. If life can endure in silence and darkness, adapted to pressures and heat we once considered impossible, then perhaps the legends of greater life below are not entirely beyond imagination. Historians still debate whether myths of the underworld preserve truth or invention, but science itself admits how little we know. The hypothesis lingers. Could there be a civilization beneath our feet, hidden not by distance but by depth, waiting in silence while we walk unaware above? Perhaps the answer is no, and the Earth is only stone and fire. Or perhaps the myths, the tremors, the maps, and the whispers are the faint traces of a truth too vast to dismiss. The debate is unresolved, as it has always been. Scholars argue for allegory, believers insist on memory, scientists probe with instruments that reveal only fragments. And so the hollow Earth remains a question, a mirror in the dark reflecting our deepest curiosity. The story of hidden civilizations beneath the Earth is not only about what might exist in stone caverns or molten depths. It is also about humanity's longing, the need to believe that mystery still survives in a world increasingly measured and mapped. It is about the instinct to imagine that beneath the surface, somewhere in the silence, lies an echo of forgotten ages, or perhaps a promise of something yet to be revealed. And now, as the journey closes, the pace slows. The imagery softens. No longer is there the weight of speculation, but the gentler rhythm of reflection. The caverns grow quiet. The underground rivers flow steadily in the dark. Crystals glimmer faintly, like stars buried deep within the earth. In that silence, the unknown feels less frightening, more like a cradle, a reminder that mystery, whether real or imagined, holds us in its patient arms. If you have followed this descent all the way, let the final images linger. The earth not as emptiness, but as a keeper of stories, myths, and the fragile hope that there is more to discover than we know. The hidden worlds, whether real or metaphorical, remain beneath us, undisturbed, waiting in their silence. And as that silence deepens, so does your own. The weight of stone above, the cool air of caves below, and the steady rhythm of unseen rivers all fold into one long breath. The story withdraws like a tide, leaving only calm. Good night.